Good morning, church. It's so good to see you all here this morning. I'm thankful that you all are here. You could be anywhere in the world, but you chose to be here at the Church of Christ that meets at Holmes Road. And so I'm thankful to see all of you here today. If you are visiting with us, we are thankful that you have come to visit with us, and we hope that this is an encouraging time of worship for you, and that you'll be challenged to walk in step with God's word and to follow Jesus. And we certainly hope that you'll come back to worship with us again here in the future. So this morning we're going through the Sermon on the Mount. And so today we are in Matthew chapter 5, verses 33 through 37. If you have your Bibles or if you want to follow along there, we'll be in Matthew chapter 5, verses 33 through 37. So as we begin, I have to tell you that I am a sucker for pranks. All right, I absolutely love pranks, especially when they're done on other people, right? So don't anybody get any ideas here or anything about throwing a prank on me. Milton, wherever he is. But yeah, I just absolutely love pranks, especially when they're funny and when they're relatively harmless as well. So there's this really funny prank that I once saw on YouTube, and I just think it's just hilarious and really just kind of unbelievable when you think about it. There's a guy by the name of Steve Philp, and I think he's a comedian. And anyway, he has this theory that you could go anywhere with a ladder. And so one by one, he sets out to put this theory to the test. And so he goes to all these places that normally you have to pay for to get in. You have to either have to pay for, or you have to have a ticket or reservation or permission or something like that in order to get in. And so he goes to all these places to test this theory to see if he can get in with a ladder. And so the first place he goes to is a train station, right? So he goes to the train station there, and it works. They just let him right through the little kiosk thing with his ladder, and he just goes in without having to pay his ticket or anything at the train station. Then he goes to a fancy restaurant, and he just walks in. He's able just to walk into this restaurant, and then he ends up in the kitchen of the restaurant, and nobody says anything to him. Then he goes to a 5-star hotel, just walks in, no one says anything to him. He goes to a movie theater. He gets into a movie for free, all because he had a ladder. And so at this point, I think he knows that his theory works now. He's just kind of showing off and just kind of bragging. And so he goes and like inspects a horse carriage somewhere. Like what do you, I don't know. He goes and inspects a horse carriage. And then he goes into a construction site and acts like he's actually working. Like one of the workers there at the construction site. And he just fits right in. And then the icing on the cake is when he gets onto a ferry boat for free with the ladder. And so his theory works. It's really crazy, really unbelievable. He just goes anywhere he wants with a ladder. So I just thought that was just really unbelievable. But that prank is funny. And I think it's funny because although he has no business being there at any of those places, it's believable, right? It's believable that he could have some kind of business there. And I think that's what makes the prank so funny. And so we can laugh at this prank because he's believable, although he's not truthful. In Jesus' day, when Jesus looked out and saw the crowd at the Sermon on the Mount, he realized that there was a worldwide epidemic, an epidemic of lying. He realized that people are habitual liars, that we'll say and do just about anything to get our way, even if it means defaming the name of God. People were lying and making oaths and only being deceitful to get their way. And although I don't think this is anything new, it's been a problem since the very beginning. There was a problem with being believable but not truthful since the very beginning, right? Like the Garden of Eden, the serpent said to the woman, did God really say not to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil? Did God really say that? And so it's been a problem since the beginning. And I think in America, we have the same problem today. It's second nature for some people to lie. I think we have a problem with people who want to make it a habit of being believable but not truthful. Just like the comedian here, but only it's for real with us. We're happy to go through life getting our way all the time, convincing people that we're believable, pretending that we're one thing, but in actuality, we're another. We've become masters at acting and pretending. Whenever someone asks us, hey, how you doing? The answer is always, I'm good. Fake it until you make it. We dress up, we put on a smile, we act like everyone's got it all together when no one's got it all together. And so it's just a major problem, but it's not new. And so today, Jesus has a powerful message for us about this lying epidemic. And he's going to give us a good antidote for this lying. So let's read together. We're going to read Matthew 5:33 through 37. This is the word of God. Again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you have made. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair on your head white or black. All you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. So Jesus says, do not swear an oath at all. He says, simply just say yes or no. So first of all, as we begin in our lesson here this morning, I want to talk about what it means to make an oath. So what is an oath? Or what does it mean to make an oath? What is swearing? So to make an oath or a vow or to swear, it helped a person to remain faithful to their commitments. It's a way to invoke the name of God or something serious to guarantee the truthfulness of your word. It's an appeal to God to bear witness that what you are saying is true. An oath is meant to reinforce the validity of your word and to deepen your credibility and your claim. So the person making the oath is calling upon the name of God to be witness, judge, and avenger if anything if witness, judge, and avenger if they are not speaking truthfully. And so a little side note here, when Jesus says do not swear at all here, he's not making a reference to using foul language or profanity or cuss words. That's bad too, so don't do that. But this is not what he's talking about here. He's talking about making an oath or a solemn promise. He's not talking about using profanity or cuss words. And so the problem was not that people were making oaths. The problem was that people were not being truthful when they made their oaths. They were believable, but not truthful. It's essential that we don't just have truthiness, but that we have truth. That truth really permeates who we are. So his point is not so much that oaths are evil as the motivation for engaging in them are, that we should just simply tell the truth and let our yes be yes and our no be no. So Jesus' point is not necessarily about avoiding oaths. The issue is telling the truth because God witnesses every word that we speak. And so what the Pharisees would do is they tended to make the Old Testament's permission to swear or to make oaths mean that only oaths that invoke the name of God were binding. And so if a person wasn't really serious about an oath, he could swear by something less sacred, like by heaven or by earth or by Jerusalem. And so it sounds serious, but if their oath was too inconvenient or too difficult for them to carry out, they can get out of their oath because it wasn't binding. And so this is what they would do. And this is what Jesus is condemning here this morning. Now, this may sound shocking to you, but I do not believe that Jesus was totally against making oaths or swearing. Now I know that may sound shocking because we just read what Jesus says, do not swear, do not make an oath at all. But I believe that Jesus is not condemning oath-making itself necessarily. I believe that Jesus is condemning the practice of being believable but not truthful. He's condemning the practice of believe what I'm telling you, although I have no intentions of doing what I just said. So here's where I get that from. In several places, the Bible assumes that men will take oaths and swear before God, and that they were expected to keep them. For example, in Deuteronomy 23:23, it says, whatever your lips utter, you must be sure to do, because you made your vow freely to the Lord your God with your own mouth. In Leviticus 19:12, it says, do not swear falsely by my name and so profane the name of your God. I am the Lord. Here's another one in Numbers 30, verse 2. When a man makes a vow to the Lord or takes an oath to obligate himself by a pledge, he must not break his word, but he must do everything he said. So the Old Testament law demanded that a person be true to any oath that they made. In fact, there are several characters in the Bible who took oaths, like Abraham. Abraham took an oath. Jacob, Joseph, Paul. Paul took oaths on multiple different occasions. Peter, even an angel in heaven took an oath. Jesus, when Jesus was on trial before the Sanhedrin, he did not refuse to testify when the high priest put him under an oath. So in effect, he was told to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And Jesus did not refuse to take an oath. On many occasions, Jesus uses oath-style language. When he says, truly, truly, I tell you, he's using oath-style language. Now, he's not swearing to God there. I mean, he is God. He's not swearing, but he's using this oath-style language to add validity and weight to what he's saying. Did you know that God made oaths? In the Bible, on multiple occasions, God made oaths. In Hebrews 6, it says, when God made his promise to Abraham, since there was no one greater for him to swear by, he swore by himself, saying, I will surely bless you and give you many descendants. And so I don't think that Jesus was necessarily opposed to oaths. Jesus is condemning what the Pharisees would do, is they tended to make the oaths, the Old Testament's permission to swear, mean that only the oaths that invoke the name of God were binding. And so if a person really wasn't serious about an oath, they could swear by something less sacred, like by heaven or by earth or by Jerusalem. And if it was too inconvenient for them, they could get out of it without taking God's name in vain. And so this is why Jesus says, if you swear by heaven or by earth or by Jerusalem, this comes from the evil one. That's why Jesus says that. It's because of this deception that they were doing. So Jesus emphasizing having such integrity that oaths are not necessary. He says that everything by which you can swear by is ultimately God's anyway. And he just says, just tell the truth. Just keep your word. And so what they were doing is what every kid in grade school does when they wanted something really, really bad. You know, we would say, I swear to God, hope to die, stick a needle in my eye, right? And the only way to prevent death or blindness is you had to do this right here, right? You have to cross your fingers. And so the religious leaders, they had designed an elaborate system indicating how binding a vow was, depending on how the vow was made. The leaders said that if they swore by heaven or by earth or by Jerusalem, they could get out of their vow without penalty because they did not make the vow in God's name. They were crossing their fingers. So Jesus explained that a vow is a vow. A promise is binding before God no matter what words you use because everything is done in God's presence. And everything belongs to God. Even the hairs on your head belong to God. So we just ought to, as Christians, we ought to be so well known for our honesty and our truthfulness that we don't need to make a vow whatsoever. So Jesus insists that whatever a man swears by is related to God in some way, and so we should just keep our word. Now, I know that some Christians are opposed to, let's say, going to the court of law and putting your hand on the Bible, right? And I think that's fine. You can just say, I affirm. But I want you to know that every time we sign a visa contract or a mortgage, we're essentially making a vow. We're saying that I'm going to fulfill that commitment. I'm going to do that. So putting your hand on the Bible and raising your hand is not that big of a deal. We do it all the time. We just don't do it so formally. So Jesus, he raises all speech to a vow, essentially. He says that anything that you say essentially is in the presence of God because God is everywhere. God is omniscient. He's omnipotent. He's omnipresent. So everything is in the presence of God. The one who sanctified the temple is the same one who created the lumber for the temple as well. So we just need to quit playing games because when you play games with the truth, you are dishonoring the source of all truth. Now, this practice condemned here, it probably started out innocently. It probably had good intentions when they started out doing this. They just wanted to add solemnity or validity or weight to their words. And they didn't want to irreverently invoke the name of God. So they found alternative ways to make oaths. And in fact, they didn't want to say the name of God. And so this still happens to this day. Jews will not say the name of God. If you get an email or a letter from a Jew, usually it'll say G-D. They will not put the O there. And they still do that to this day. And once when I was learning Hebrew from some Jewish friends, and whenever we were reading a passage of scripture, whenever we came across God's name, they would not say God's name. They would say Adonai instead for God's name. And it still happens to this day. In fact, because of this, we 100% unequivocally do not know how to properly spell or pronounce God's name in the Old Testament. Because Jews, out of reverence for God's name and for fear of breaking the third commandment, they stopped saying God's name and they stopped writing it. And so over time, we lost how it was properly spelled or pronounced. Now, we have a pretty good idea today, but we don't know 100% unequivocally, but we have a pretty good idea. And so they avoided the use of God's name initially as not to dishonor and break the third commandment, but because of some unforeseen circumstance. So let's say that I say, I want to swear half of my crops to you, but then the crops don't come in because there was no rain. And I put God's name to that vow or to that oath. Oh no, now I've taken the Lord's name in vain. And so what they did was they come up with this system and said, you know what, maybe I shouldn't do that because I can't control everything. If something unforeseen happened and I can't control, at least I didn't take God's name in vain. And so this is how it started. But you can see what happened. Eventually, something that probably started out innocently became a great game, and they took that which was meant to be honorable up front to say that we're going to keep our word, and they made it into verbal gymnastics or verbal loopholes, verbal fine print. They made the formula more important than the vow itself. And so they would swear by something lesser by crossing their fingers. And you can't say I swear to God. They would say I swear by the altar. I swear by the altar. Stick a needle in my eye. Hope to die. That kind of thing. So this is what Jesus is condemning: this perception of being believable and not truthful. So not the vow itself, but the deception behind the vow, the deception to cheat people and deceive people religiously, and to lie with spiritual etiquette. So I love this quote here by the popular theologian Mary Poppins. I think we all know who Mary Poppins is. She said this about oaths: they're nothing more than pie crust promises, easily made and easily broken. I think there's a lot of truth to that statement. It was Walter Scott who wrote the famous lines, "Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive." And isn't that true? Later on, J.R. Pope added the lines, "But when we practice quite a while, how vastly we improve our style." The Pharisees gave style to dishonesty. They spent more time trying to be believable than truthful, and they invented truthiness. Because while it's true that when we start lying, we create more difficulties for ourselves, sometimes instead of being truthful and just telling the truth to avoid our difficulties, we just get better at lying. Our resolution isn't to remove the difficulties in our lives. It isn't to tell the truth. Our resolution is just to get better at lying, to be better liars, to be more sneakier with our words, to give more elasticity to what we say, more flexibility so we can't be caught. We make our words more ambiguous so it can mean this or it can mean that, so we can't be held accountable, so we don't have to honor that contract, so we don't have to keep that budgetary line because we were ambiguous when we made that promise. In the Bible, Jesus condemns dishonesty style. So we should not give style to dishonesty. He condemns that very thing. So these people were spending more time trying to be believable than any time trying to be truthful. And this is exactly what Jesus was condemning. So I had to take a step back and ask this question. Do we have this today? Do we have this today in our world, in our culture, in our own lives today, where people, they mean one thing, or they say one thing, but they probably mean another? So I have this quick list that I want to share about how this happens today. Nations have their treaties. Filers have their tax deductions. Insurance companies, their pre-existing conditions. Politicians, they're dodges. Pundits, they're spin doctors to make something bad look good. Investors, of course, have their hedges. Lawyers, indirect answers. Salesmen have half truths. Mechanics, white lies. Accountants have their fudges. Police departments, evidence tampering sometimes. Governments, cover ups and misleading information. Political candidates, smear campaigns. Madison Avenue in New York, product embellishment. Resumes, their enhancements. We all know what those are. Newlyweds, their prenups. How many times have I benefited from being believable but not truthful? Academically, financially, relationally. I mean, I'm not picking on anybody here. I'm just saying the problem permeates our culture. In fact, we have TV shows now where the whole way to win the show is by lying and cheating. That's how you do it. You lie and you're deceptive. That's how you win the show. What I'm saying is that our culture is giving up on the notion of truth. We've given up on it. The world is full of people who want to be believable, all because we have a ladder. People have no intention of being truthful. Our world is full of debtors who keep telling their creditors that the check is in the mail. Our world is full of fishermen who catch bluegill and tell tales of Moby Dick. That's what our world is like. And that's what I'm like sometimes. It's not just the Pharisees or the Sadducees or somebody else. It's me too. I feel like, for the most part, I'm a pretty honest person, for the most part. And so it compels me to say that I'm not as always honest as you might think I am. When I look in the mirror and I look at my face in the mirror, and when God is looking at the face of the man in the mirror, that's true. I know it's true. There's a tendency to not want to tell the truth, but to be truthy, to be believable, but not truthful. And let me just be the first to confess that this morning. I'm the first in line. I like to think of myself as being an honest person. But when I really think deep down about everything in my life, I can't say that I'm honest all the time, everywhere. And I know that sounds terrible, but it's true. It really is. I try to be aware of it. I try to catch it. I try to hold my tongue. But I think all of us probably think that we're more honest than we really are. And if we would really pause and long enough to take a close look at ourselves and really examine our motives, what we said, what we didn't say, what we included, what we left out, we would realize that we're involved in deception a little bit more than we might think. And I'm first in line. For example, have you ever started working harder when your boss showed up? Right? Isn't that dishonest? Have you ever told someone you're going to do something for them but never got around to it? Have you ever spent a considerable amount of time on your phone at work, right? Scrolling through Facebook or on Instagram or playing games? All right, isn't that stealing time away from your employer, right? Have you ever told someone who was sick, I'll pray for you, but never got around to lifting them up in prayer? We love to be believable and not truthful. So Jesus is not condemning oaths here. He's condemning the practice of being deceptive, gaining an advantage of someone else at the expense of them, being believable and not truthful. So what do we do about this? What does Jesus say? What is our antidote here? I think it's very simple. Jesus says, just let your yes be yes and let your no be no. I love the story of King Frederick of Prussia in the 18th century. He visited a prison in Berlin, and he was interviewing the inmates, and he was amazed at how every single inmate was innocent. So as he was walking through, he was just amazed that none of the inmates should be in there. And so he walks through, and he asks the inmates, why are you here? Why are you here? You know, what did you do? That kind of thing. And all the inmates, one by one, says, oh, the judge was wrong. My lawyers were bad. I had an unfair trial, that kind of thing. And they had all these excuses. And then he sees this one guy sitting off in the corner by himself, and he walks over to him, and he asks him, he just starts wondering, why is he off there sitting by himself? Why is he isn't trying to get him out of there, give him a royal pardon? And so he walks over to the man and he says, "Hey, what are you in for?" And the man said, "Armed robbery." So the king said, "Did you do it?" The man said, "Yes, sir." And then the king said, "Guards, guards, guards, come get this man out of here. I don't want this man corrupting all these innocent people in here." Right? Paul says this in Romans 3:23, "For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God." I think the first thing we need to do is we have to be honest with ourselves. And we just need to be honest with ourselves that we're not always as truthful as we pretend to be. So Jesus is not talking just to the Pharisees or the liars or the habitual liars. He's talking to all of us in this room right now. The fact that Jesus gives this command is indicative of the fact that we're not always honest. The fact that Jesus even had to give this in the first place. And so we just need to start just by being honest with ourselves. We need to acknowledge that we're not always as truthful as we pretend to be. But when we do that, we can move on to the second point, which I think is we just need to pursue simplicity. Instead of trying to find extravagant words to add solemnity to what we're saying, we just need to say yes or no. That's it. I think it's pretty simple. Don't be deceptive. Don't be duplicative. Don't have ulterior motive. Just say yes or no. If you need to invoke heaven and earth to back up your oath, then it's likely that you don't know the creator of the heaven and earth. And I believe that an oath will not make a dishonest person honest. And I don't believe that the absence of an oath will make an honest person dishonest. I think the oath is irrelevant. What's important is the integrity and character of the person. Just be an honest person. Just say yes or no and leave it at that. Here's the third thing for us as we get ready to close this morning. I think we need a better understanding of God. I think that, and this is the important thing. We need a better understanding of God. I think part of what lies behind lying is the fear that we won't get our way. So when we lie, there's this fear there that says that I'm not going to get my way if I don't lie. So I think we must learn to trust God more when things don't go our way. We need to stop trying to put things in our own hands and play God ourselves. We just need to trust God and let him be God. I think we have to have a better understanding of who God is. Our integrity, it can't be up for sale whenever things don't benefit us. We need to increase the size of our God. It was J.B. Phillips who wrote the book called Your God is Too Small. And he says this in the book that we have not found a God big enough for our modern needs. So our ideas and belief about God is just too small. I think many of us, we worship a small God. And for me, when I lie, when I'm dishonest, when I don't tell the truth, I know it's because I don't trust God enough. My God is too small. I don't think that he's big enough to handle my problems. He's not big enough to handle a rejection. He's not big enough to work out my problems or to work things out if I get declined. I don't think that he's capable of working a setback for me. And so what we do is we decide to play God and say, hey, thank you, God, but I'll take it from here. I'll take matters into my own hands. I'll play God, make sure that things work out for me, and then I'll let things go. And that's what happens when our God is too small. Our resolution to difficulties in life isn't to be truthful, it's to be better liars. It isn't to trust God more in difficult situations, it's just to be better liars. And so we have difficulties in our lives because our God is just too small. But wouldn't it be nice if Jesus' disciples were known for their integrity, if we were known for our character, that when we said something, we meant it, that we mean what we say and we say what we mean. If, for instance, Miss Lalangi, when she says that she's going to do something, everybody would know that she means it. If Billy says that he's going to do something for you, you could count on it. If Miss Catherine told you that, if she told you something that you knew that it was money in the bank, that she was going to do it, it's going to come through. Wouldn't it be nice if we were all honest up front and truthful? That's what Jesus wants from us. We need to learn to be more truthful in our lives and not better liars. And Jesus demands it. And I believe that we wouldn't be so compelled to lie if our God was bigger. So I know that I just gave you guys 3 points here, and I never wanted to reduce the solemnity of this issue down to just 3 points. So if you're struggling with this, then maybe this could be a starter point for you. So true disciples, we just need to let our yes be yes and our no be no. We don't need to add oaths to our words because we are just known for our truthfulness, our reliability, and our honesty. So let me close this way. In John 14:6, Jesus says, I am the way, I am the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Fortunately for us, the one called the truth died for liars. Today, you have a chance to embrace the ultimate promise keeper and be cleansed from all falsehood. If you have any need this morning, if you're ready to do so, why don't you come as we stand and as we sing. Restore